Working with cameras and lenses. Has been developing his own film since he was in high school. So he's really been, and he also is a mathematics major.
Tom Hanks is America's most beloved actor. Decent, universally trusted. The opposite of a Hollywood scandal. His son spent years doing the opposite of everything the Hanks name stood for. Chet Hanks became known for viral fake accents, public controversies, and substance binges so extreme that they left him stranded overseas. Some fans even began asking a question that once seemed unthinkable. How could this possibly be Tom Hanks' son? Then something happened that nobody saw coming. The internet's favorite punchline suddenly became one of Netflix's biggest stars. Major record labels came calling. His career exploded, and Tom Hanks himself helped launch the comeback. So how did Hollywood's most controversial celebrity turn everything around so completely? The price of being a Hanks. Chester Marlon Hanks was born on August 4, 1990, the third child of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, who had married Tom in 1988. By the time Chet was born, Tom Hanks had already appeared in Philadelphia. Forrest Gump was 4 years away, and the cultural weight of the Hanks name was already substantial. Older siblings Colin and Elizabeth had grown up in the years when Tom was still an actor, trying to pay rent. Chet and his younger brother, Truman, arrived in a household where the father was already a household name in every country with a movie theater. Tom Hanks himself acknowledged the difference in a 2019 New York Times interview, noting that his older two children had the advantage of remembering their father as an ordinary person trying to make ends meet, while Chet and Truman had never known that version of him. What looked like privilege from the outside produced a specific psychological burden that Chet spent years trying to describe. The expectation was instant and unfair. Before doing a single thing, Chet was already being evaluated against a reputation he had not built. Strangers assumed arrogance, entitlement, and laziness simply because of the last name. Chet later described the dynamic precisely in a 2022 YouTube video. Society assumed the spoiled brat, while the reality was a kid who had material advantages, but no framework for handling the public scrutiny that came with a parent at that level of fame. The privilege was real. The preparation for living inside it was not. Tom Hanks was also not consistently present during Chet's childhood years. The career demands of becoming one of the most successful actors in Hollywood required a level of professional attention that competed directly with domestic life. Chet absorbed the public version of his father the same way the rest of the world did, while the private version was frequently somewhere else. The acting career started early, but the early years were less about building something than about proving the last name was not the whole story. Chet Hanks signed with a talent agent at 16 years old and landed a role in the 2007 Bratz movie while still in high school, taking 2 months off from school to film on location. The early career moved forward with small appearances and cameos. A brief role in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008 put Chet on screen alongside Harrison Ford without generating much press. Guest appearances followed on various television series. The resume was building, but nothing was breaking through. Chet enrolled at Northwestern University, where the music identity that had been forming quietly began to take a more public shape. Under the name Chet Hayes, Chet recorded a rap parody of Wiz Khalifa's Black and Yellow called White and Purple, a Northwestern-themed track that went viral in a way that surprised everyone, including Chet. The attention encouraged more recording. The follow-up material, by Chet's own later assessment, was not good. The larger problem was that none of the professional momentum was happening in isolation from a private life that was already in serious difficulty. Substance use had begun in the teenage years, and the combination of early money, early access, and the social environment that surrounds a famous family created conditions where the problem could deepen without the natural consequences that would have forced confrontation sooner. The persona that Chet was building publicly, the rap name, the videos, the loud online presence, was running alongside a private reality that pointed in a completely different direction. The gap between the two versions of the same person was widening in ways that would eventually become impossible to manage without a serious intervention. Accents, rants, and going viral for all the wrong reasons. At various points across the 2010s and early 2020s, Chet Hanks posted videos on Instagram in what appeared to be a Jamaican accent, with no clear explanation for the choice. The reaction was immediate and largely negative. A white man from Los Angeles, with a famous father speaking in what commentators described as an appropriated accent, became a source of ridicule that spread rapidly across social media platforms. Chet deflected the criticism by maintaining the persona rather than addressing it, which extended the news cycle and deepened the association. The vaccine commentary that followed during the pandemic generated a different quality of backlash. Chet posted a video explicitly opposing the COVID vaccine and encouraging his followers to do the same. A move that landed in the news not just because of the content, but because of the contrast with Tom Hanks, who had publicly shared his own COVID diagnosis in early 2020 and had become one of the more visible examples of pandemic transparency among celebrities. The summer of 2021 produced the White Boy Summer campaign, a phrase Chet promoted across social media that generated significant controversy about intent and framing, with debates about whether the phrase carried cultural insensitivity or was intended as straightforward, self-deprecating humor. Chet maintained it was the latter. The internet mostly disagreed. What is clear in retrospect is that the public controversy cycle of those years served a specific function in Chet's career, whether it was intended to or not. The name was continuously in circulation. The attention, negative as it was, kept building recognition. The question of whether the persona was genuine or calculated remains genuinely difficult to answer. Chet addressed it himself most directly in Running Point, describing the character of Travis Bug as a role he had to do full method work to inhabit, which became the most self-aware joke the transformation has produced so far. Underneath all the public noise was a private addiction that had been running since age 16 and reached a breaking point that almost ended everything. In 2014, a 24-year-old Chet Hanks published a statement revealing that the substance use that had started in adolescence had progressed to the point of requiring professional help. The revelation came with 50 days of sobriety and a gratitude for the family support that had made seeking treatment possible. Chet thanked Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous directly, which indicated the severity of the situation was beyond casual excess. The post acknowledged that the struggle had been present since the teenage years, placing the beginning of the problem squarely during the period when Chet was living at home with one of the most recognized families in entertainment. The road that followed was not linear. In 2018, Chet acknowledged a relapse and was describing 2 years of sobriety again. The cycling pattern of recovery, relapse, and return is documented in clinical addiction literature as among the most common trajectories for substance use disorders, and Chet's experience followed that pattern across multiple years. The most dramatic public disclosure came in 2024, when Chet revealed on The Surreal Life that the relapse leading to his most recent rehabilitation had involved a 3-day substance episode in Las Vegas that produced a weight loss of 27 pounds. The physical description of that period, no food, no sleep, minimal water for 3 consecutive days, communicated the severity of the disease with a directness that left little room for minimization. By March 2025, Chet was telling the Drew Barrymore Show that the current sobriety exceeded 3 years and that the sustained recovery was attributable in significant part to the support of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, who had stayed present through every cycle of the struggle. The sobriety that currently holds is also connected to the musical partnership that produced Something Out West. Chet and bandmate Drew Arthur are both in recovery, and the mutual accountability between them has become one of the stated foundations of both the friendship and the professional collaboration. The daughter nobody knew about. In 2016, Chet Hanks published a statement on Instagram confirming the existence of a daughter before the news media could break the story first. The decision to control the narrative directly was characteristic of the approach Chet has consistently taken with personal information. Disclose it publicly before the press can frame it, then set the terms for what gets discussed afterwards. Chet did not share the name or images of the child. The daughter, Micaiah, had been born to Tiffany Miles, about whom very little is known publicly. The statement that accompanied the disclosure described fatherhood as the event that had changed the direction of Chet's life more than anything else. Micaiah was described as the best thing that had ever happened, and as the primary motivation behind the decision to pursue sobriety and build something sustainable. Chet maintained that description consistently across years of subsequent interviews. The privacy around Micaiah has been held firmly regardless of the level of public attention on Chet at any given time. No photographs of the daughter were shared as a matter of deliberate protection. Chet cited the recognition that his own childhood had demonstrated the specific costs of growing up in public view, and expressed a determination that Micaiah would not face those same costs before she could choose for herself. The relationship with Tiffany Miles did not continue, and Micaiah grew up between two households. Chet's commitment to co-parenting and to the consistent presence that the child deserved became a recurring theme in interviews during the period when his sobriety was also being rebuilt. The combination of fatherhood and recovery produced a version of Chet Hanks that the public had not previously seen. The loud online persona was still present, but underneath it, something was stabilizing. After separating from a woman named Kiana Parker in early 2021, Chet Hanks posted a video on social media that showed blood on his face and accused Parker of striking him with a pot and cutting him with a knife. Parker denied the allegations and obtained a restraining order against Chet. Within a month, both parties had filed separate civil lawsuits alleging assault and battery against each other. Chet claimed Parker had stolen more than $5,000 from him during the relationship. Parker claimed assault across multiple incidents, cited fear for her personal safety, and requested $1 million in damages. The full picture of what happened between the two was never established through public court proceedings in a way that fully resolved the competing accounts. Chet's attorney dismissed Parker's claims as completely fabricated. Parker maintained that any actions she had taken were in self-defense against a partner who had become violent. The lawsuits existed as the most visible and consequential element of the public persona that Chet had accumulated across the previous decade. Where the accent videos and the vaccine statements had produced mockery and outrage, respectively, the Kiana Parker situation produced something more serious: a documented legal dispute between two people, both claiming to have been affected by the other. Neither case resulted in criminal charges. The situation eventually faded from coverage as the lawsuits moved through the legal process without the dramatic resolution that press coverage of the initial allegations had suggested was coming. What the Kiana Parker period represented in the broader arc of Chet's life was the bottom of a particular trajectory. The legal disputes, the relapses, and the continuous cycle of controversy had run simultaneously long enough that the cumulative weight was becoming unsustainable. The change that followed required something more fundamental than an improved public relations approach: a shift from internet rap to Nashville credibility. The transition from hip-hop to country music did not happen overnight or through a single decision. Chet Hanks had been recording rap under the name Chet Hayes since his Northwestern University years, releasing material that ranged from the genuinely viral to the, by his own description, genuinely terrible. The identity built around the rap persona was loud, provocative, and difficult to separate from the controversy cycle that surrounded everything else Chet was doing publicly. In the later years of his 20s, Chet began spending time with the music of Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Waylon Jennings, finding in country a directness and emotional honesty that the performance energy of hip-hop had not consistently provided. The discovery was quiet and personal, happening away from social media rather than being announced and curated. The connection with Drew Arthur, another musician in recovery, produced the partnership that eventually became Something Out West. The two met through sobriety connections and began recording together in a space where the priority was making music that meant something rather than building a brand. Something Out West signed with Big Machine Records in 2025, the Nashville-based label that originally launched Taylor Swift's career. The debut single, Leaving Hollywood, was released the same year and positioned the band immediately within mainstream country music, rather than as a novelty project connected to a famous surname. The EP that followed demonstrated enough range and authenticity to generate genuine country music industry attention, independent of Chet Hanks's name recognition. The duo was booked for the 2026 Stagecoach Music Festival, one of the largest country music events in the United States. In early 2026, Chet relocated to Nashville and moved into an RV park rather than renting an apartment, choosing the experience of living inside the culture of the music rather than observing it from a comfortable distance. Running Point premiered on Netflix in February 2025 and reached the #1 position on the platform in the United States during the week of March 3 through 9. The series, created by Mindy Kaling and inspired by the real life of Los Angeles Lakers president Jeannie Buss, starred Kate Hudson as the unexpected heir to a fictional basketball franchise called the Los Angeles Waves. Chet plays Travis Bugg, the team point guard and amateur rapper whose persona Chet described in interviews as requiring the full method acting process, noting that the character was a real stretch. The self-aware humor behind that description landed perfectly. Travis Bugg is essentially the version of Chet Hanks that the internet had been mocking for a decade, rendered as a comedic character within a well-produced Netflix drama. The performance worked because the source material was genuine. Chet understood Travis Bugg from the inside because the territory was familiar. Running Point earned a 79% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on its first season. Netflix renewed the show quickly for a second season, which premiered in April 2026 to an improved score of 89%, suggesting the creative team had strengthened the material after the strong initial response. Chet appeared across 9 episodes of both seasons, establishing the character as a consistent presence in the world of the show rather than a supporting bit. The music career and the acting career landed simultaneously in 2025, representing a convergence that the previous 15 years had not suggested was coming. Tom Hanks had given his son one piece of career advice over the years: show up on time, know the lines, and treat everyone around well. By 2025, that advice was being followed on the set of a #1 Netflix show. The music video that changed the whole story. In March 2025, Something Out West released the music video for the song You Better Run. The video opens with a feather floating through the air before settling on a figure seated on a park bench in a pale suit. The figure is Tom Hanks, recreating the opening iconography of Forrest Gump, the 1994 film that produced one of the most recognizable images in Tom Hanks' filmography. The video is full of Forrest Gump references. The shrimp boat is named Jenny. The running sequence echoes the cross-country run from the film. Tom Hanks appears throughout, with full comedic commitment. The significance of that video extends well beyond a clever marketing concept. Tom Hanks has spent decades building a public reputation for moral seriousness and professional dignity. The gap between that image and the public record of Chet Hanks across the previous 15 years had been a recurring topic in entertainment coverage. The fact that Tom Hanks chose to appear in a music video for a son whose public persona had repeatedly generated negative press for the family name communicates something more direct than any interview statement could. The You Better Run video is Tom Hanks publicly endorsing Chet Hanks at the exact moment the transformation became real. Not through a statement or a red carpet appearance, but through the actual sacrifice of 2 Oscars worth of screen gravitas in service of a country music video. Chet Hanks at 35 is sober, signed, performing at major festivals, co-starring in a Netflix hit, and living in a Nashville RV park by choice, because the work matters more than the comfort. The man who could not stop generating controversy for 15 years has produced, in approximately 18 months, a body of legitimate professional achievement that finally stands on its own. The last name is still there. For the first time, it is not the whole story. Chet Hanks spent 15 years in the shadow of one of entertainment's most iconic names, nearly losing everything along the way. Then sobriety finally stuck. The music found direction, Netflix opened the door, and Tom Hanks stepped back into Forrest Gump to confirm the turnaround was real. Drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more transformations that no one expected.